Hey, what's up folks? Here we are at part 11 of the Complete Beginner's Guide to Mandolin. In the previous lesson, we took a deep dive into major scales, and in this lesson, we're going to check out the difference between major and minor sounds. So you probably already know this, but there's a big difference between a major and a minor sound, right? Take for instance this D major chord. A lot of people say that a major chord sounds happier or sounds brighter compared to this D minor chord here, which sounds darker or sadder or more somber, right? Check out this D minor chord here. It's very similar to our D major, but we're lowering the 2nd fret on our E string to the 1st fret, and we're flipping our fingers a little bit. So now I have my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, open D, open A, then my index finger on the 1st fret of the E. Try comparing those back to back just to get that sound in your head. And while we're at it, let's learn a couple other proper minor chords that we'll use for some songs later on this lesson. So first up, here's an A minor chord. Here I have the 2nd fret on my G string and the 2nd fret on my D string, just like our other A chord. But now we are adding the 3rd fret on our A string here with our middle finger, and then we're keeping our E string ringing out. And one more here, let's learn an E minor chord, which is another popular minor chord on the mandolin. Here we have our open G string, our 2nd fret on the D, 2nd fret on the A, and then open E. And here are a couple fun facts about minor chords. To start with, you'll find minor chords in major keys all the time. In fact, we'll learn a song and a lesson or two here that has both major and minor chords, and it's in a major key. And the opposite is true as well. We're going to learn a couple minor key songs today in this lesson, and you'll find that we'll use both major chords and minor chords for those songs. But let's go from thinking about chords to thinking about scales, right? We had major scales for those major keys that we talked about last time. But now, if we're playing in a minor key, those major scales won't work. We have to learn new minor scales to go along with these minor keys. I know, more theory, right? But that's what we're going to do in this lesson. Real quick, I'm going to show you how to play 2 minor scales to go along with these songs we'll learn later on. And here's the real frustrating thing, is that before, when we were working with major keys, there's only one major scale that went along with each key, right? We had the G major scale for the key of G and so on. But when you come to minor keys, there's actually a number of different types of minor scales that you can choose from just to go with that one key. It's so confusing, right? So you might hear terms like the natural minor scale or the harmonic minor scale or the melodic minor scale. And don't worry, we're not going to look at all those today. I'm just going to show you the most common minor scale that we encounter in bluegrass and old time music. And it's not what you might think. For some reason, a lot of these folk melodies are written in what's called the Dorian mode. And mode is just kind of another word for scale. And what we're going to do to find this Dorian mode is start out with our major scale as our comparison, and we're just going to alter a couple notes to get this new Dorian mode. So let's start off with our D major scale, and then we'll find the D Dorian mode. So to start off with, you remember that first octave of the D major scale? So to make this major scale a Dorian scale, what we're going to do is we're going to lower the 3rd and the 7th note of the scale. So it sounds something like this. And if you're thinking about your finger spacing here, we're changing up the whole step and half step recipe that we talked about in the last lesson. So for that major scale, we had whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, right? Now for the Dorian mode, we have whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. And you don't necessarily need to memorize that. What's more helpful is just think about what are the notes in this mode right here. Let's figure out the note names for this scale. So for the Dorian mode, we have D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Nice, well let's do the same thing with our A major scale. Let's start with the A major scale and then find the A Dorian mode from that starting place. So you remember our A major scale here? Now to play the Dorian mode, what we're going to do is lower the 3rd and the 7th note of the scale, just like we did before with the D major scale. So now here's our A Dorian mode. And let's find the note names for this scale here. Here we have A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and A again. So let's take this Dorian mode a step further by learning 2 octave versions of this scale like we did earlier with the major scales, right? So let's start off with the D Dorian mode and figure out how to play this scale in 2 broken octaves. Should be something like this. Let's try that together, and also let's try that trick where we said the note names of the notes as we played them up and down these 2 octaves. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. E, F, G, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, A, B, C, and D. Nice work. Well, now we're going to do the same thing with our A Dorian mode, right? So here's 2 octaves of our A Dorian scale. All right, and when you're ready, let's try playing this and saying the note names for this scale for both octaves. It goes like this. A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A. Nice work, folks. And if you're up for some extra credit, you can take that same scale pattern that we looked at for the major scales and apply them to the Dorian mode here. So let's do that as well. For the D Dorian mode, that scale pattern will sound something like this. Let's check out this pattern for the A Dorian mode as well. All right, well, now we're gonna put all this work to good use by learning a couple songs in the keys of D Dorian and A Dorian. And first up, we're gonna look at a classic old-time number that you probably heard before. It's called Shady Grove. Check it out here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's come over to that transcription and check out what's going on in this song. If you're following along in our PDF handbook over on Patreon, we're on page 31 here. So this song is in the key of D Dorian, and let's check out the chords to this song first. We have that D minor chord that we learned earlier in the song, right? Then we have a familiar C chord here, right? Not too bad. But on the next line, we have an unfamiliar chord, right? We have an F major chord here. And to play an F major, I'd use this shape. Here we have 5th fret on the G string with your ring finger. We have 3rd fret on the D string with your middle finger. Open A, and then reaching back all the way to the 1st fret with your index. Might take a little while to get used to this one, but whenever you're ready, let's see if we can play through these chords together, and let's use maybe a new strum pattern here. And a nice folky strum pattern goes something like this. Down, down, up, up, down. Down, down, up, down. So this drum pattern feels a little bit wonky at first because we're doing 2 consecutive upstrokes in the middle there, but we're still alternating our right hand in time with the music, right? Our downstrokes are always falling on the beats in the measure, even if we're not playing our downstrokes, right? Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this strum pattern still lasts for 1 measure, so you can use this as a technique to count how long you're staying on each chord before you transition to the next one, right? So I've got faith in you here to play these new chords and to try out this new strum pattern. Let's come over to the backing track and see how all this works out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome, so now let's come over to the melody and see what's going on. For this tune, we just have 1 section that repeats, right? We have 1 8-measure section with a first and second ending. So let's dive into this first phrase here. Let's check it out. Already you can see that all these notes fit within that D Dorian mode that we worked on earlier. That's why it's so helpful to know the scale, because we're not playing any notes in the cracks here. It all just fits within that framework. Also, we have this lead into a slide at the beginning of the first measure, right? We're sliding from the 5th fret of our G string to the 7th fret, and we're also letting that open D string ring out here. And right after that slide, we're playing some repeated open D string notes here. Other than that, this phrase is pretty straightforward, so why don't you try it out with me here? All right, the second phrase starts out the same way, but it ends a little bit differently. Check this out. In this phrase, we have a new slide from the 5th fret of the D string to the 7th fret, right? But otherwise, this is pretty straightforward too, so let's try this out together as well. On to phrase 3 now. So in this phrase, we just have a hammer-on from our open A string to our 3rd fret on the A. That's something new to watch out for there. But otherwise, let's try this out. And here's that last phrase of the melody. Nothing too fancy there. Let's give this a shot together. All right, here we go. Let's come over to the backing track now and try all that together with the repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, but we're doing double duty on this lesson. We're not going to stop there. We're going to learn another new tune now, one that's in the key of A Dorian, to get a feel for how this scale interacts with the melody. This is one that some people play in old-time circles, and it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll come over to that transcription now, and we're on page 32 of our handbook if you're following along. And I'll leave it up to you to practice the chords for this one. You got the chord shapes down at the beginning of the lesson. Try out some of these different strum patterns that we've learned as well. So we'll hop straight into the melody here. Let's check out the first phrase for our A section. It goes something like this. Not too bad, right? We just have that slide in the pickup measure to lead us into the first beat of that first full measure. Try it out with me. Here's that next phrase now. You can really see how these notes fit with that A Dorian mode here, right? We're just going down that scale one note at a time here after doing that hammer on at the beginning of the phrase. Try it out with me. All right, the third phrase is exactly the same as the first, so let's try this out again. In the fourth phrase here, this turnaround phrase is very similar to this second phrase that we learned, but it just ends a little bit differently. Take a listen and see what's different. So we have a new slide here on the 5th fret of our D string, going to our 7th fret with that open A ringing out. And then we also end that phrase by playing our 2 open A and E strings here. Let's try that too. All right, we'll come over to that backing track now and try that whole A section once together. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's check out this B section here, and you'll find that it's actually really familiar. It's pretty much all phrases that we've already learned. So the first phrase of the B section is almost identical to the second phrase of the A section, right? We just have a couple little leading notes to get us to the first beat of that measure. Check it out. Then the next phrase is exactly the same as the phrase we just played, so no problem, right? And then you can see the pattern. We're actually going to play that exact same phrase one more time. And then for the last phrase of the B, it's very similar to the turnaround on the A section with just a couple slightly different rhythms. Check this out. And one different thing about this tune is that the B section doesn't have any repeats, right? So we're only going to play through that B section once, but we'll still play through the A section twice since we do have repeats there. So the whole form and structure of this tune goes something like this. We have A, B. So let's try all that together with the backing track and see how it feels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, nice work, folks. You guys have done great sticking with me so far. That's just a little introduction into minor scales and minor chords and minor sounds with a couple minor tunes under your belt. And in our next lesson in this beginner series, we're going to take all these concepts one more step further. We're going to check out what modal tunes sound like and how this modal sound is kind of a cross between the major and the minor scales that we've looked at so far. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check it out in part 12 of the Complete Beginner's Guide to Mandolin coming up next. And of course, in the meantime, you know the shtick, right? Hit like, hit subscribe here on YouTube. Join us over on Patreon for all those learning resources. And I'll see you in the next video.